Yeah, hi everyone. So as you're joining, feel free to write in the chat where you're joining us from. I think we got people from very different time zones, so that's awesome. And tell us what you do, who you help. Yeah, feel free to drop your socials, your website. Whenever there is an opportunity to network and tell people what you do, like always do it. So for sure, tell us in the chat. I think we'll give people a couple of minutes to join. So as Robin is letting people in, I will just tell you what we're actually going to talk about today. So we'll do quick introductions. We will tell you why we actually decided to make this webinar about email. So why email is one of the most effective, cost-effective, scalable personal channels and what you can do with it. We'll talk about the difference between cold and warm email, and we'll show you some examples and some kind of mistakes to avoid when you do both. And we'll, of course, give you plenty of actionable insights, takeaways, so that you can walk away from this webinar knowing how to engage readers, how to build trust, and how to either start your first campaign or improve your existing ones. And we'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. So I think we'll talk for about 35 minutes, I'm not sure, and then maybe like 15 minutes for questions. So yeah, if you have any questions at any time, just drop them in the chat and we'll address them all at the end.
Cool. So thanks to everyone who's saying hi in the chat as well. It's great to hear where you're joining from and who you help and what your organization's called. So feel free to keep sharing that as well. My name's Robin. I'm a co-founder of Pravi. Pravi is a platform that we've built to help small to medium-sized charities grow their audience online and find more donors. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in my section. The QR code you can see on screen here, if you scan that with the camera on your mobile phone, that will bring up all my details. So if we're not connected already, I use LinkedIn a lot, so please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you all. And also any questions after the session, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to help there as well.
Thanks, Robin. Oops, wrong way. So hi everyone. If we haven't met, I'm Aina. I am one of the co-founders of Matchstick. We are a lead generation agency. So this means that we help organizations with finding and connecting with their ideal opportunities, new clients, new partners, new donors. We are a certified B Corp and we specialize in the purpose-driven space. So for nonprofits specifically, we help them with corporate engagement. So everything from strategy and research to actually executing the campaigns and securing new introductions, so finding new corporate donors and partners. Yeah, please scan the QR code. It links to my LinkedIn, same as Robin. That's actually where we met on LinkedIn. I'm super active there, and yeah, happy to just anytime when you have any questions, just reach out to me. And yeah, so email is actually one of the main channels that we use in our campaigns. So I know for a fact that, it can be used to, like, we generate so much sales pipeline for our B2B clients. We have connected charities with, organizations who have donated in-kind gifts, who have made financial donations, who have nominated them for Charity of the Year nominations, awards. So email is really powerful, and it's really important not to be shy to take that first step, to take the initiative to send the email. So yeah, today we'll show you how to do that. So before we actually start with our session, I want to ask people who are here in the chat, if you could let us know, how do you use email right now, if you use it at all? Like, do you have a newsletter that you send monthly, maybe? Or have you done any like cold outreach, maybe trying to engage some corporate partners? Yeah, it would be really helpful for us to see just where everyone is on their email journey. I'm sure that we have kind of people at very different stages. And if you haven't done it, maybe if you can share like what's holding you back, what's been challenging. So yeah, for now. So email remains one of the most popular communication channels. 347 billion emails are sent every single day. So, I mean, even when I looked up this number, I was quite shocked. It's more than I thought. And the number is still growing. So everybody is using email. And pretty much everyone who has email checks their email pretty regularly. So it's a great way to communicate with people, both to establish the connection and to nurture the connection. So one of the main advantages is that email is extremely low cost. So unlike, for example, paid ads or organizing your own in-person events where, you have to invest a lot, with email, you can get started with very, very small budget, and it's also extremely scalable. My favorite thing about email is actually that it allows you to really be precise with your targeting. So for example, when we post on social media, it's kind of, we're guessing like who is going to see our content. Whereas with email, you get an exact list of people, like you know them by name, you know their job title, you can pick the most relevant audience, and you can be, yeah, very exact with your targeting. And that's really the most important in marketing, to be speaking to the right audience, right? So I really love that, yeah, email gives you a lot more control than some other channels. And there is actually a stat from this year that online donors say that email is the communication method that's most likely to inspire them to make a donation. So I think the percentage was like 33% picked email, 28 or 29 said social media, and then it was charities websites, direct mail, etc., etc. Before I move on to the next slide, Robin, were there any answers in the chat?
So
Because I
I
can
think
see it.
everyone's listening intently because we haven't
Yeah,
had anything, but people are
no
introducing
worries. All
themselves,
good, all
which is
good.
great.
So really quickly, I wanted to show you, like probably some people here are familiar with what we call a sales and marketing funnel, but in our context, we can call it as the donor journey. So it's very rare that somebody hears about your organization for the first time and immediately, becomes a supporter, super loyal, who advocates for you. Like it can happen, but most of the time people have to go through this funnel. So first they have to become aware, they have to hear your name, get to know your brand, your logo, understand what you do. Then they start considering, so they start seeing the relevance, like how they could, maybe participate. And then ideally, we want them to convert. So we want them to take the action. It can be to become our paying client. It can be to make a donation, to become a volunteer with us, to become our partner. And then, of course, we want them to stay loyal and ideally to start advocating for us. So to bring more people into the funnel. And the truth is that people don't go through this funnel by themselves, like they get lost. So it's really important that it's our job to make sure that our funnel doesn't have too many leaks and that people go from being aware all the way to converting and being loyal and advocating. And a really effective way to help people move through the funnel is using email. So very broadly, we can say that there are two types of emails. There is what we call cold and warm email. So cold email generally refers to when the person hasn't opted in to receiving email communication from you. Maybe you haven't even had any interactions before. Whereas warm email is when people specifically put that check mark to say, yes, I agree to receive emails from Pravi or from Matchstick. So when they are on your actual, subscriber list. So it's not that one is better than the other, absolutely not. They're very different and they are used in different scenarios. So to give you an example, a cold email could be when you make a list of businesses in your area who, like for example, you're looking for somebody to provide you with a space for your event, or some very specific type of like business who you would like to work with. So there's no way for them, like they will not be on your newsletter, subscriber list. So it's absolutely okay for you to make that list and to reach out to them. So that would be called outreach. Or maybe you're looking for sponsors or even like attendees for your events. A warm email would be if you have a newsletter. So every month you send some updates about what happened, who you helped. Maybe you are asking them for volunteering, for donations. We'll get into that a little bit later today. But yeah, so warm is when people specifically said, yes, I want to receive emails from you. So I also want to point out the difference between cold email and spam, because I know that a lot of people who I meet, they have hesitations about cold email and mistakenly think that it's always spam, which is absolutely not the case. So the definition of spam is that it's usually sent in bulk. So if you check your spam folder, I'm sure anyone on this chat, you will see plenty of emails in there, and it looks like 10,000 people received exactly the same email. Like clearly the person hasn't researched your organization. It's probably not relevant to you. It's not personalized. Like sometimes they don't even bother personalizing your name. And of course, it's unsolicited. So it's people who you've never interacted with before. So the difference between spam and cold email, and how do we make sure that, our cold emails don't get marked as spam? So the most important is that it's sent with intention. So we intentionally select a few people. So it's not, we don't buy a list of 10,000 people and just start spraying. But we build our list. We most importantly make it relevant. So we explain very clearly why we're reaching out to them and what's the relevance, like why we picked this person. And we personalize it. So at the very least, it should be their name and their company. But of course, for the email to be successful, you really want it to be tailored to that person. And to be compliant with anti-spam regulations, we have to always include an option to opt out. So you will see at the end of some emails, people say something like, if you don't want to receive emails from me again, please say no thanks, or something like this. So there are plenty of instances where, like I'm sure people here who have maybe an email list, you know how difficult it is actually to build, like to get people to give you their email and to subscribe to your newsletter. It's very difficult. So there are a lot of instances where you just have no choice and you have to cold email people. So it's absolutely fine. It's legal. Don't be afraid of it. Just make sure that you personalize it. You say very clearly, like what's the relevance, and you include the unsubscribe or opt out option. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the most common fears. I think that's the mindset, of doing email outreach is really where it starts. So what we hear very often is that people say that they don't want to spam or to bother people. And another one is that they're not sure who to email or what actually to say in their emails. So a mindset reframe that I'm going to recommend, if you have ever felt this way, is to think instead of I'm bothering them or I'm asking them for something, think of it as I'm offering them a meaningful partnership aligned with their goals. So everyone on this call, you're doing important work, you're doing great work, you have a great mission, you believe in it. I assume so, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, you have to tell people about it, because otherwise they will not know about it. Like you have to speak loud and proud about what you're doing. And the key is really just to find people who it's relevant for. Like that's what makes your outreach, your email, I mean, everything really successful is that you're speaking to the right people. Yeah, hope today we'll get into some actually strategy and tactics, how to make it successful. But really, it starts from your mindset. Like, try to turn, if you have any kind of fear of rejection, fear of, oh, I'm going to bother them or they're not going to reply, just try to convert it into fear of missing out. Because unless you reach out to them, you might be missing out on opportunities. And when we get a no, like when somebody says, no, don't email me, that's actually a great answer because now we know that, okay, this is not the right person. We can move on and we can, every no gets us closer to a yes. So before we get into the kind of juicy part of like what to put in an email and how to make your email connect and convert, I just want to briefly touch on the topic of what we call email deliverability. So basically what it means is how to make sure that your email actually lands in the inbox. So if you remember, I said that about 370, I don't remember even the exact number, 370 billion emails are sent every day. So about 46% of them are marked as spam. So there is a huge number of spam emails going out all the time. And the email service providers like Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo, they have declared a war on spam. They are protecting our inboxes. They're making it very hard to actually land in the inbox, which is great. But it also means that it's a little bit difficult, even when you're sending a legitimate email to make sure that it lands in the inbox. So I will just give you two kind of main pieces of advice. If you have more questions about it at any time, ask me. When we do cold email, it's always the best practice is to have a separate domain for it. So what it means is if your website is nonprofit.com, a proxy domain would be wearenonprofit.com. So it's a domain that you buy that sounds very similar to yours, and you can buy these for like 10, 20 bucks. They're not expensive, and they will link redirect to your original domain. But this would mean that all of your outreach happens from that separate domain. Why? Because when we send cold emails, inevitably, some people will not open them. Some people might not reply to them. Somebody will mark it as spam. And all of this gets registered on the back end and it, builds up in your domain reputation. And it can hurt your domain reputation to the point that even your internal emails, like when you're emailing your colleagues, your finance team, your clients, your existing donor base, even those emails can land in spam folders. So it's very important, just as a security measure, to keep your cold email separate on a separate domain, just to protect the health of your primary domain. And another tip of advice, so this is for both cold and warm email, is that it's really important that the email list that you have, so the actual emails that you're messaging, that they're up to date. And you would be surprised how often people actually leave jobs. Like sometimes you will find this person, like, today, and then in a month you try to email them, and the email is no longer valid because something happened, they left. And in that case, your email will come back as a bounce. I'm sure you have experienced something like this. And when you get too many of these bounces, this again registers on the back end and it hurts your domain and it will affect your deliverability. So it's really important to verify all email addresses before we email them. There's plenty of tools for it online. So just to check, is it a valid address? Is it not a valid address? And also to remove subscribers who don't engage with your emails. So this is very individual, like depends how often, you send out emails. But for example, if somebody hasn't even opened your past like 5 emails, again, on the back end, the email service providers will find it suspicious. They'll be like, like, are they spamming people? Like, why are they not opening their emails? And it will hurt your domain will get punished. So always just every few months or however often, just go through your list and remove subscribers who don't engage. And yeah, with email list, like more isn't necessarily better. It's all about quality. Okay, enough of that. Oops. Now we're going to talk about how to write high converting emails. I'm going to ask if anyone wants to share in the chat. Actually, what would a good email look like to you? Like, what would make you open an email, reply to an email? Is it a good subject line? Is it maybe like some interesting story that's told in the email? If anyone feels like sharing, I think this is a really interesting exercise to be on the recipient's end and think like, what makes a good email? What would grab my attention? What would make me, write a positive reply? So if anyone wants to share, that would be awesome. No pressure. For now, we will get into some of the best practices. So we'll start with cold email. So the main, I would say, like the foundation is to be very clear on who you're targeting. Because if we try to resonate, if we try to address everyone, we will resonate with no one. And we want to make our message as niche, as specific, as relevant as possible. And that starts by, being very clear on, so creating our persona, like who we're targeting. So it can be, for example, if you're messaging people from different job titles, you should have a different kind of messaging for CSR directors and for finance directors, for marketing directors, maybe different industries. It has to be really, really niche and really relevant. And of course, you have to research the person to make sure that there is that direct relevance to whatever you're emailing them about. So the most common mistake is that when we write emails, too many people make the email about themselves and not about the audience, not about who they're messaging. So some people here have heard me say it before, that the harsh reality is that people don't care. Nobody cares about us. People only care about themselves. They care about their challenges, their frustrations, their goals. And when we talk about us, we care about it, but they don't really care. And we have to make it very, very obvious, very clear to them, like why should they care? Why any of what we're doing is actually relevant? How does it tie in with, like what's in it for them? So if you find yourself, saying we are an organization who does this and this and kind of giving them your full background story, just stop, cut it all out, and make it more about what's the relevance, what's in it for the recipient. And my final piece of advice for cold emails would be to keep it short, much shorter than like sometimes people send me their emails to actually ask for advice. And almost all of the time, it's long love letters. People don't have time. They don't have enough attention. Like you, ideally, you want to keep it under 100 words. Even shorter is better. And there are many reasons for this. Like even when you open an email, if it's too long, it already sets the tone. Like this is going to be boring. I don't have time. I'm going to read it later. So yeah, we want to keep it really snappy. Just lead with value. Like make it super clear why you're reaching out. And also a very common mistake, I think that everyone does, but I see it with charities a lot, is having too many calls to action. So at the same time, asking, like sharing some update and also asking people to come to their event and also asking, oh, if you want to donate and if you want to do this, like don't give them too many options. Just decide what's your goal. Are you trying to get people to attend your event? Is this a donation? Like, are you asking for donations? Just stick to that one goal and have one very clear call to action. It's always going to work better. Robin, did you have any replies in the chat? I can't see the chat.
So I was just wondering, could you give an example, I know, of when like if you're a nonprofit and you're emailing a corporate, what kind of things are you looking for to get that synergy where the nonprofit, like how do you narrow down your audience? How do you think about
Mhm.
who to start with when you're targeting, let's say for like corporate sponsorship?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Like it basically all starts from there. So one thing that I would recommend, we actually have a great AI prompt that we always ask charities to use, and we received some great feedback on it. So I can share it later, but basically you could ask AI, you could say, we are a nonprofit that does this, like this is our mission. We're looking for corporate partners. We know that these kind of partnerships have to offer mutual value. So people aren't just going to give you money. Like they have to get something in return, especially with corporates. It has to like align with their CSR commitments. It has to uplift their brand. So yeah, you could ask ChatGPT like how could we position it and what kind of industries would it make sense for us to target? Who would see the value in partnering with us? So really the key is to find that connection. So for example, an example that I like to give is if you're working with families with young children, a good audience to contact might be family lawyers. So they have a lot of money. They, not often like do this kind of work. So it's a great opportunity for them to do some philanthropy, and it really fits with like it will look great on their brand that they're supporting a charity with, who helps struggling families with young kids. So yeah, it's about like finding that connection, and a great exercise is to ask AI. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Great. So I'll move on to the next slide. So that was cold email. Now, just very briefly, a few tips, best practices that apply to both cold and warm email. So one is that we always recommend to not just rely on email, but to complement it with other channels because uh, like when people receive an email from you and they go to Google you, you at the very minimum need to have a working website, so that they can go and they see, okay, it's a real organization. Ideally, you want to have some social media presence. Like if you're inviting them to an event, you should have an event page. And yeah, you could take it even a step further. Like when people are engaging with your emails, you could try to call them. That's called warm calling. So people are already primed by the email. They know your name. They aren't going to be like complete, who are you? You could even do direct mail. So this is a bit more expensive, but it works like magic. Like it really, really works. Sending handwritten notes, some, personalized invitations, postcards. But yeah, it's always best not to just put all your eggs in one basket and rely on just one channel, but have kind of a more well-rounded approach. So this one is an obvious one, but you'd be amazed actually how many people don't follow up. But yeah, if you're only going to send one email, you might as well not even bother because there's just too many reasons for people not to like, because somebody didn't reply to your first email, it absolutely doesn't mean that they're not interested. Maybe they just got back from vacation. Maybe they're about to step out for lunch. Maybe they just were busy and forgot. Like maybe they received a lot of emails at the same time. So always, always follow up. Usually, from what we see, 2 to 4 email sequences work best. And just keep in mind that follow-ups must add value. So please don't try it. Hey, I'm just checking in. Did you see my previous email? Like, These things are very painful to write and to receive. So instead, try to add something, share some relevant update, add some other invitation, like share something. Make it more than just, hey, did you see my last email? Because that just sounds very desperate. And finally, always good idea to use email management software. So I won't get too much into it, not to make it too technical, but just keep in mind that um, if you're sending warm emails, like there are some marketing tools, you can even use your CRM, things like HubSpot, Brevo, like there are plenty of tools out there. If you're doing cold email, for example, HubSpot doesn't allow you to send cold email from them. They're very strict about it because they don't have the right foundations in place. They're not set up to send, these kind of emails. Your deliverability will not work. So you want to use actually dedicated cold email software. So it does mean a small investment, but I absolutely encourage you to always reach out to these software providers, say, we're a small charity. Can you give us a discount? All the businesses I worked for, we didn't advertise discounts. Anytime when a charity reached out, we always gave them a discount. It could even be a good practice for you to ask for, I mean, they can sponsor you. They can just give you the software, the one seat for free. So absolutely always ask for a discount. Now, I know this is a lot of text, but I wanted to include just one example of a good cold email. So this email is word for word what booked a meeting for one of our clients earlier this month. So I'm not sure how many words this would be, but I guess like maybe 70. So as you can see, it's quite short. So I'm just going to read it and kind of, go over it. So we lead with a relevant personalization because that's the first thing that the person sees. They receive the email, it's like the little preview. So we have to immediately get their attention. So never start with, hey, I hope this finds you well. Like you can do that with your, clients, your friends, but when it's a cold email, like you can't waste that first line. So here we said, hey, name, loved reading about the KFG program. Donating 1.1 million worth of services in 2024 is phenomenal. So it sets a positive tone. We compliment them. We reference their CSR initiative, and we clearly show that we've done our research. Like we had to go download their report to like find this number. Then we do a very quick introduction of who we are and why we're reaching out to them. So our charity helps struggling families with young children across 20 countries, and we're looking for corporate supporters to help strengthen our global network. So very short, just, so they know who you are, what you want. Then we lead with what's in it for them. So by partnering with us, you can make a real difference in families' well-being while showcasing your brand as a tech leader driving positive global impact. So this we tied in exactly with like the language that they used in their CSR commitments. So we're not only saying that we need your help, our families need your help, but we're saying you can make a real difference in our families' well-being, and it also fits with what you're trying to show, to build your brand as a tech leader, driving positive global impact. And then we close it with a soft CTA, so soft call to action. So it's not a good idea usually to ask for a meeting in cold emails, like on the first interaction, because really you have to earn that, you have to earn their time, their attention. And it can be a little bit pushy if you're immediately like, let's jump on a call. So in this case, we asked, can you share how could we be considered for your community initiatives? And they actually reached out and said, let's have a call. So if we hadn't booked a call from this email, the follow-up was we invited them to an event. And then the third email was we share another supporter story. So we say that thanks to our longstanding supporter. So we give an example. This is called like social proof. So we show that, other businesses trust us and work with us. And it can be a good idea, like for people to see that, okay, like, they already like have some other supporters, like they're a well-established organization. And a bit of storytelling, like this is what we've done, some of the results. Now we're looking for this. And then the final email is what we call a breakup email. And that's when we say, hey, looks like you're busy. Is there somebody else at your organization who has more time to explore this? Could you introduce us? And actually, a lot of people reply to that. So yeah, for email sequence, that's just an example for you. And now I just wanted to, before I pass it over to Robin, to say that if you are writing your own email campaigns, we have this excellent, comprehensive, but super easy to follow checklist on our website. It's completely free. It's a PDF, so you can scan the QR code and download it. And yeah, it's literally, as you can see here, it's a checklist just to make sure that you don't forget anything, so that you stay compliant, so that you are very clear on your targeting, you write like great copy, and yeah, stay clear of spam folders. So scan the QR code, download it, and if you ever have any questions, you know where to find me. And if you need support in this area, that's what we do at Matchstick. We specifically specialize in high ticket partnerships, so specifically corporate donors, corporate sponsorships. And yeah, we do everything from strategy and research tailored to your organization. And then we actually craft and manage the campaigns up to the point where we book meetings. So either in person or online, but we secure those introductions and then pass it over to your organization to build on that relationship. So you know where to find me. And now over to Robin. So I guess I'll stop sharing, Robin. Let's switch. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. There's a couple of questions in the chat as well that I was just going to call out. So there was
Great.
a great question from Victoria about how can we make emails so short, under 100 words when we're fundraising, as fundraising is usually tied with storytelling. So I struggle to see how we can land a compelling story asking for a gift without sounding cold. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's probably this is the difference between kind of warm and cold email potentially.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Robin. So that's an excellent question. Uh, so usually those kind of emails you would be sending as warm emails. So when you're already people are in your subscriber list, and in that case you don't have to worry so much about the 100 words. I would still try to keep it like write it out, give it to ChatGPT, say, can you make it any shorter? Because shorter is always better. But of course, if you're telling a story, it like most likely will take you a little bit more. When you send cold emails, you have to find a way to keep it shorter because actually, if your emails are long, you will get penalized and it's more likely to be marked as spam. So again, a great way is to ask ChatGPT or Perplexity, like they all Claude, whichever AI software, they all have great free versions. Like that's what we use a lot. And yeah, we have also on our website some templates. We have a corporate donor guide, which includes some email templates. So if you want, you can check it out. But I think maybe the question, like Robin said, is about warm emails, in which case you have a bit more room.
Yeah, definitely. And I put like so many of my emails through ChatGPT and ask it to make it like more concise and like more to the point because I think it's really hard when you're trying to get all your thoughts out to make it sound like that. Thanks so much for questions. I also saw there's a question from James, which I can talk about. I can also answer now about newsletters. So I'm going to do a little section on warm email. So this is for your newsletter subscribers, existing donors, people who have opted in and given you their email address, as opposed to cold outreach to, for example, corporates for sponsorship. So James's question, which is a great one, is whether online or pen and paper signups are better for a newsletter, and that often smaller organizations might struggle to get people to sign up for their newsletter. I think, like personally, it's not so much a difference between is it better to do pen and paper or is it better to do online? It's more about how can you give value back in exchange for the email address. So what if you're asking someone to give you their email, why would they give it to you? What are you going to give them in return? And sometimes that's easier to do online because you could offer, for example, like a resource or something to download. But it's always, I guess, similar to Ina's point, it's always about thinking like, what's in it for me? Why would I give you my email address? What am I going to get in return?
Robin, if you don't mind, I'll just add
Yeah,
something to that. I
yeah.
think I think there is something in the pen and paper, like especially if it's handwritten, but even just if it's in printed form, when people receive something, it, you know, versus an email. When you send an email, it's a little bit like you didn't put so much time into it. Whereas if you wrote a handwritten note, like people
Mm,
feel that, okay, they've given me something, I have to give some. Like there is some weird psychology, you know,
yeah.
that they maybe will be more likely to invest the time to reply to you. But yeah, it ties in with, of course, like what, you know, what's in it for them, what's the value. But I think there is something to the handwritten notes and the pen and paper that people are just like more inclined to take the action because they see that you've
Mm.
invested more time.
The old-fashioned approach. So let me know in the chat. I'd love to know what platforms you're using to manage email subscribers at the moment. The ones I hear most often are MailChimp, Brevo, but also maybe it's a spreadsheet. So just drop those in the chat. It's just helpful to know what everyone's using. I'm going to really quickly go through this note because I know that everyone on the call is not based in the UK, but this is a really important change that's happening in terms of how we can contact people via email. And you can look into this more offline, or I'm happy to offer advice because I don't want to sort of waste too much time on something that's specific to the UK. But in the UK at the moment, charities have to get explicit consent before they send fundraising emails. So that means that someone has to tick a box and say explicitly that you can email them about that. And that's obviously more difficult to get. However, there is a change going through government at the moment to extend what is called a soft opt-in to charities. Now, this is basically to extend the same rules and regulations that apply to corporate businesses to charities. So if I'm a corporate business, I can email someone if they just express interest in my services. They don't have to explicitly give me permission. They just have to show an interest in what I'm doing. So that could be coming to an event, signing up for a webinar, downloading a resource. As long as someone shows that interest, I'm allowed to email them. And this currently is not the same for charities. This explicit opt-in for fundraising emails is required. But this change is going through government at the moment. It's not yet legal, but it's a really important differentiation in how charities can use email in the future. And you can see here, I've put on the slide that there's an estimate that this could add £290 million to annual donations in the UK. So if this applies to you, I really encourage you to look up the soft opt-in for charities and the changes that are happening in that space. So why email is so important? Now, Ina has talked to this in terms of more of a cold email, and it's very similar in terms of warm email. As she mentioned, email lets you talk directly to your supporters without being a victim of the algorithm, where the social media, you can't control who sees your posts, but you can when you're emailing someone. Also, importantly, when it comes to your email subscribers, you own that list. So we don't own your audience on Facebook or your audience on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm sure you've all heard stories of people who lose access to their social media accounts overnight or get blocked or get banned. And that can have really devastating outcomes for people who can't talk to their audience anymore. But your email address, your newsletter list, that's yours and that's something that you own. And so that's why it's so valuable. It also makes it easy to link to things like donation pages. I'm sure you've seen like things like LinkedIn, they don't like you to include external links because they want to keep you on the platform, they want to keep you scrolling. And so it can be difficult to direct people to different types of pages, our website. And also, email's really the long game. It builds familiarity and trust over time. And that's what's really important, I think, especially for small to medium-sized charities, because you don't have the same brand recognition as the big charities. People don't already know, like, and trust your organization. It can take time to build a connection with people, to build the trust, to build the familiarity, so they can understand your work and the impact you make. And that's why sending regular emails can bring them on that journey and eventually steward them into becoming a donor. Now, this is my opinion on email, but when I talk to a lot of charities, small charities and nonprofits about email, it can feel overwhelming. So what I hear often is like, I don't know what to say, I don't have time, I don't want to bother people. We have, I spoke to someone this week who said we have 1,000 people on our email list, but we never contact them. And that is a real missed opportunity. And so I wanted to include this just to say, to not get overwhelmed by needing to be great. So if great looks like a weekly email update, a fancy automated welcome series when someone signs up, templates, beautiful images, your team working together, that's great, but it doesn't mean that you can't just send some good emails, and good is good enough. So this could be a monthly email reaching out. It could be one email when someone joins your newsletter or makes a donation. It could just be a plain text email, so like the email you would receive from a colleague. It doesn't have to be perfect. It is better to talk to your audience, bring them on your journey, and when the time is right, ask them for a donation, than have 1,000 people on an email list that no one ever talks to. Another sort of pain point I see a lot coming up when I'm talking to small to medium-sized charities and nonprofits is this sort of disconnect between the person sending the email and the person receiving the email. So for us, if we're working in our charity nonprofit, sending the email out is like an item on the to-do list, right? So it's like, I need to get this update out. I haven't sent an email for ages. It's time to send the monthly newsletter and I don't have time. But when it comes to warm email, you're talking to individuals and you're often talking to them in their personal life. So when people sign up for a charity's email, usually it's a personal email rather than a work email. At the doctor's office. So unlike cold email, which is often being received in a work context because you're at work and they're at work, um, when you're talking to warm email, it's often people when they're relaxing. And so I really encourage you when you're writing those emails to think about that person that's receiving the email, making it about them, and also think about what would you want to receive if you were relaxing at home and an email came in to your inbox from a charity. What would you want to read about? How would you want to feel? What would be interesting to you? And sort of move it away from a work task and into sort of speaking directly to someone about something they care about. So this is also to build on Ina's point. So Ina talked a lot about the technology behind emails going to spam. I also wanted to give some little tips as well, because again, I hear this is a very common pain point when I'm talking to charities, is that emails that people are sending are ending up in the spam or the junk folder or not being opened. So this is just a few tips I have on screen here about how to make sure your emails don't look too spammy. So it's always best to send from a real person's email address and not like a hello or like a fundraising at email address. And you can also ask your subscribers to add you to their contacts when you start reaching out to them, because that really helps the deliverability. Avoid the spammy language. That sort of goes without saying. And also, as Ina mentioned, keeping the list clean. I really like encourage you to not get too wrapped up in the numbers. So if you have 1,000 people on your email list and half of them are not opening your emails, it's better to have 500 people that are opening emails and responding and reading them than 1,000 people who don't respond. And that's really the same as unsubscribes as well. So one of the kind of mind blockers around email can be, I don't want people to unsubscribe, but actually it's better for someone to unsubscribe if they're not interested, because that means they're not part of your audience, they're not invested in your mission, and that's okay. And that's their choice to unsubscribe. So don't let the fear of unsubscribes make you stop reaching out. And really, the bottom line when it comes to spam is building that trust and relationships by sending the valuable emails, engaging emails that people actually want to read, and even potentially respond to or take an action like clicking through a link and giving a donation.
Robin, I don't mean to interrupt, but I
No,
just
go
want to
ahead.
add something to that. I
Yeah.
dropped in the chat, so there's lots of tools that you can use to check your email copy for spam words. So the one that I linked is free. Yeah, you can just literally copy paste your email in there, and it's going to flag like which words you might want to replace. So if anyone wants to make note of that, it's in the chat.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know about that. Thanks for sharing, Ina. That's
Mhm.
great. I also you reminded me that I need to like update our email list as well for pe when people like have left an organization, because that's like something that's just like I haven't been doing. And I'm like, yeah, I do get a lot of out of offices, so it's a good reminder too. Okay, so um, when it comes to building trust, if I'm saying the way to get good emails, to get good responses, and also not to end up in the spam filter is to build trust and build a relationship with your audience. I just wanted to give a quick, very simple rundown of what that could look like. And when I think about email, I think about it in three kind of stages. So the early stage, which is like a welcome. So this could be the first time someone subscribes to your newsletter, the first time someone donates, the very beginning of the donor journey, um, some kind of series of welcoming emails that introduce your work, who you are, your values, and why your work matters. Then we kind of move down the line into the monthly updates. So this is not so much about asking for donations, but this is showing the impact, sharing the difference that their support could make, and really creating that community. So they feel like they're part of something, something they care about. They care enough to give you their email address. So they want to be part of a change. They want to be part of the good work that you're doing. And sending monthly updates like this makes them feel part of kind of the change that you're making in the world, your community. And then finally, the third bucket, which is the campaign emails. And this is where we are making specific asks. And this could be a donation. It could also be to volunteer or share work with others. And you're using specific stories and specific examples to make donation asks. This is also, I often see like sometimes organizations can have some nervousness about the specific ask, but it is important because people get so many emails every day. How can they cut through the information that you're giving them and understand what it is that you want them to do? And so being specific, giving them an action and making it easy for them to carry out that action is also really important. So this is my sort of final part. I really wanted to share an email here and kind of pull it apart in the hope that this would really help you when it comes to thinking about warm email. So this is an email from Save the Children, and I know Save the Children is a huge charity with lots of resources, a big marketing department, a big budget, and all sorts of other things. But that doesn't mean that we can't learn from their email, pull it apart, and actually use all the tactics that they have and all the strategies that they're using in this email are completely open for anyone to use. So I'm just going to go from the top of the email to the bottom. So you'll see at the top, importantly, we've got donate in the top right-hand corner because this is where my eye hits first. So we're putting that donation button in a place where I'm going to see it. The imagery used here is really positive and hopeful. And so we're talking about an organization called Save the Children. We're using like the smiling child, these bright colors. We've got the drawing on the face. And so we're really speaking to the type of person who wants to support Save the Children and what they want to see in the world, which is children who are safe, happy, protected, growing. So this image speaks directly to that. And it also really helps that the eyes are focusing right out on me, right? I'm making eye contact with this child. Now, if we move down the email, you can see in the first section, the language being used here is really warm, kind of informal and personal. And this is even though this is coming from the president and CEO, the language like, I'm so happy to meet you, and I look forward to sharing our latest news. This is very open, non-corporate, informal, friendly language. And I think that's really important when we're doing emails to supporters. If you move down again, you can see the next paragraph starts with a really clear thank you, and then reiterates Save the Children's mission statement in just a short sentence. So reiterating A, thank you for supporting, and B, this is our mission, this is what we're all about. And then follows that up in red with some impact stats. So it's laying out, this is what we're trying to achieve, but then here are the stats behind that. Here's how we really make meaning. And you can quantify this with the number of children that we've helped. And they on purposely made that red so that it stands out to you as the reader. And we move down to the next paragraph. And to say when I'm saying paragraphs, most of these paragraphs are one sentence. So you can see they're keeping that really short, sort of to the point content. We haven't got long paragraphs here. Next, we've got they're encouraging ongoing engagement. So you can see here, as we get to know each other, you'll learn exactly how we do what we do and why it's so important and how you can be part of it. And this will be a link that goes onto their website and gives other ways to donate or to get involved. So this is what I was talking about when it comes to like creating a community. It's not a transactional email of just asking for a donation. It is making the reader feel like they're part of something different. They're part of a change in the world. They're part of an organization that is doing work that they believe in. And then finally, at the end, it's kind of like a psychological trick. This is calling on the identity that the reader wants to believe about themselves. So if I'm the type of person who decides to support Save the Children, I want to know that I'm the type of person that believes in the future of the children, protecting children, making sure that they're educated and safe. And I believe that about myself. And this is played back to me in this email by saying, on behalf of the children, I thank you for taking this step to ensure all children have what every child deserves, a future. So you're speaking directly to the type of person that I want to be, the reason that I signed up to support Save the Children. So I hope like by breaking this down and pulling it apart, You can sort of see the different parts that make up a great email. And also, like when I was pulling it apart, I realized that basically I'd had a point for every single part of the email, which means there's kind of nothing going to waste here. So there's some very careful writing and very direct language being used to make sure that every part of this email really hits on something that the charity wants to achieve, something that they want you to believe as the reader, or something that ties in with their mission and their work. So that's the end of my little section on email. I'm going to quickly talk about Pravi Launchpad, which is the free trial of my platform, Pravi. After this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So if you do have any questions for me or for Aina, please put them in the chat now, and we're happy to answer any of those. Pravi Launchpad, so my platform Pravi has been built to help small and medium-sized charities grow their audience and find new donors. And because it's a new platform, we're offering a free 4-week trial, which also includes live webinars with me and one-to-one support with me as well. Because I know starting with a new platform, starting with new technology can feel overwhelming and difficult. And so I'm trying to make it as easy as possible to get started with Pravi and give it a try. Our first webinar for Pravi Launchpad is next week on Wednesday. If it's interesting, you can find out more details on our website, pravi.ai, or you can just reach out to me and I can share more information about that. I'm going to put Aina and my QR codes are up here. So again, you can scan these and get in touch with us. And we're always happy to help. I'm also happy to answer any questions, or if there's anything that occurs to you, I guess, after the webinar and you think, oh, I wish I'd asked that, you can do that as well. And I'll also be sending out the recording to this and the slides as well later today. So I'm just going to stop sharing. Oh, how are we going in the chat? Let's have a quick look.
Yeah, I want to just really quickly add
Mm.
something. So if you don't have any questions, that's great. We can wrap up a bit early, but feel free to unmute and ask. But I did want to say, if you have any just topics for us, like for the future webinars, like is there something you want us to go more into detail about email or about just anything related to, securing donors, new partners? Because yeah, this is not our first webinar with Robin, and we love doing these. And a lot of people actually rewatch the recording, so I know like we get great feedback on it. Would love to do more, but we want to make sure that it's relevant. So if anyone has any topics that you'd like us to cover, please share in the chat or let us know later as well. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and as I say, I always make the recording available so you can always watch it again or share it with anyone who couldn't make it live. I think I'm just gonna have a little scan. I think we've answered all the questions that are here. So I think unless Aina, you have anything else to add, I think we can wrap up a few minutes early and let everyone have their lunch probably.
Sure. I guess I wanted to just add one thing also, that keep in mind that most emails are read on mobile. So Robin, the
Mm,
email that you shared, I thought it was so good. And like you said, like nothing was wasted. Every word counted. But it also looks like it was relatively short, really nicely organized. And yeah, I think like around 60% of people read their
mm.
emails on mobile. So just make sure that it's very mobile friendly.
Yeah, and also like clicking those links as well on mobile. Like, because sometimes you get an email and like the button on mobile to click through is like really small, because everything's kind of been shrunk down. So making sure like any of those actions that you want people to take are also like possible to do on mobile as well.
And I think
Um,
it's a great practice to subscribe to other newsletters as well, just for
mm.
inspiration, right? To see, even like you said, like this isn't a huge charity with a lot of resources, but it doesn't mean that we can't learn and recreate some of the things that they're doing. I think it's a really good tip to like, get inspired from other newsletters.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the case with any kind of like marketing, including social media and stuff. It's fine to take inspiration from other organizations, like other creators. And that's in fact what they're all doing as well. Like everyone is keeping an eye on what other people are doing and getting inspiration and ideas as well. Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. But thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. And yeah, please reach out if you have anything you want us to cover in a future webinar, because we would love to do that too.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.